Poke the Bear is brought to you by PrizePicks.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 303, presented by PrizePicks. Use that promo code CLNS. Get $50 back when you play just $5. I am Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. Happy birthday.
Thank you. 26 years old. I'm not feeling great. I'm sick as hell. Second straight year, just completely out of commission sick on my birthday. My girlfriend texted me on Thursday morning and was like, I'm so happy to be able to spend your birthday with you. And then her next text was, but am I really? Like, how are you doing today? And I was like, I'm not doing too great. Sorry.
Yeah, not great.
Can't do it. Can't swing it. I was like, I have to shower and like get dressed today. Usually I never shower.
Be proactive.
I shower like once a week, some weeks, you know?
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything when you were over at the Bean Pod, but
I
thought it was just the smell of the molasses from like the baked beans, but all of a sudden I saw Marinofsky walking off the elevator.
Yeah, that's it. I was stinking up the whole joint.
Yes.
No, I shower more than once a week. I try to shower twice a week.
We'll clip that. Don't worry.
That's right. That'll get clipped. But I was like, I've got to like get ready. I've got to pretend like I'm going somewhere today. I can't just sit in my pajamas all day. But yeah, everybody's getting sick. I hadn't been sick in a while. Last time I was sick was Thanksgiving. I get sick on like the biggest days of my year, which is fun. I had a thing when I was younger, before hockey tournaments, I would get the stomach bug. Like I remember when I was in second grade.
Just cutting weight.
Oh yeah, we were going to Lake Placid, and the night before I was up throwing up all night. And when we got there, I was throwing up the entire time. So that was my thing when I was younger, and now I just get sick on big days. But yeah, feeling not great. 26 years old now, so now I'm off the parents' health insurance, which is unfortunate. Out into the real world. So yeah, quite the birthday. It's snowy, it's rainy. It's just, yeah.
And there's no Bruins news to talk about. What are we going to do today, Evan?
We'll just sing a happy birthday 300 times over until we hit the 30-minute mark.
We should do it and just do it for 30 minutes. I just want to see what the comments would be the next day.
Like, fuck you guys. I'm never watching you ever again.
Yes. Until the trade deadline. There
was one good thing. When I was really sick Wednesday night, Four Nations was on. And by God, Connor, that's as much as I've gotten into a hockey game as I have in a long time. Canada beat Sweden 4-3 in OT. Fast-paced, fun, the place looked rocking. Great players. I would take this every year. Every year I would take this over the All-Star game, over anything. I know we're one game in, but I loved it.
Yeah, no, you don't want the All-Star game with the trick shots and the skating competitions, and they bring out like a TikTok like rapper that I've never heard of to like perform. Every time they do it, the NHL picks like the most bizarre people for any of these things. Like there's occasional times where they bring in someone. Like if they have the All-Star game, it would be in like Detroit this year, and like the person that would drop the puck would be like a Dusty Gooch from the Lake Tahoe games, the firefighter. It'd be something like that.
Never forget Dusty, Sergeant Gooch. Of course,
yes, who can forget? What a time in which like
President Gooch.
We had nothing going on in the year of our Lord, early 2021, that we're like, this is the funniest thing, because we all just consume like one or two things of media at the time. But no, I will take best on best competition over anything like the All-Star game. And it's funny, like leading into it, right? Like there was some people who were like, I can't get too invested in this. Like, what is this? Is this gimmicky? Like, there's obviously the complaints about the fact that can it be best on best without, the lack of a Czechia team, lack of a Russia team, stuff like that. There's obviously bigger picture things that are factoring into some of that, especially with Russia. But in terms of what this tournament is, though, like if you go operate with like some, skepticism about the tournament, I don't think how you could see that game on Tuesday or on Wednesday night rather and be like, yeah, this ain't for me. Like if you like hockey and you like, the added stakes and like every, I think, sports team is trying to find, especially during these winter sports over an 82 game season, ways to break things up and add some excitement. add something fresh to it. And like obviously the NBA has tried it with the in-season tournament. You look at the entertainment value, you look at the players and how much they bought into it. That was a blast on Wednesday between Canada and Sweden. You look at like the 10 minutes of 3-on-3 overtime and how fun that was. I don't think the players want to do that all that often because they were all gassed after the game ended.
McKinnon couldn't talk. It was so gassed.
So but I think you look at just the product on the ice. It was a breath of fresh air, I think, right, in terms of the competition. It's fun seeing all these players together, on the same team. I mean, that first power play goal from Canada, right, with the star talent involved on that play. And, it's even just putting guys in different spots. Like, you look at this upcoming game. We're recording this on Thursday before USA plays Finland, but like Connor Hellebuck, who's the best probably goalie in the, maybe not in the NHL, but right up there, right? Best USA goalie. He's had struggles in the play. Yeah. He's had struggles in the playoffs with Winnipeg the last couple of years. Like, is this his chance to break through in a different kind of tournament where the stakes are still pretty high? Like, I think from the NHL's perspective, if you're looking for ways to add some intrigue, have fans buy in, and see what you can do to get more eyes on the game, I think this is a slam dunk. We'll see what happens going forward. If every other game is like 8-1, that may not be that great, right? But for what the tournament is and how exciting it was, and especially as a way to break up just what is a long season, for this being, 25-ish games for the playoff start, and that's a way to, I think, whet the appetite of hockey fans before the playoffs. I think it's off to a great start, and it's, I think, really encouraging to see. I think the NHLPA, who've had some battles over the years, I think they're on the same page, and they can kind of see the forest over the trees in terms of it makes the players happy being in these kind of tournaments, but also like I think you're going to grow the game and have a lot of hockey fans really buying into the product on the ice. So it was a good day for hockey yesterday.
It was a great day. I'm very curious to see the ratings from that first night, even though that wasn't a Team USA. I feel like everybody was watching that game just to everybody was kind of trying to dip their toe in the water, see if it was actually good, and it clearly was. I will admit I was worried after that first power play goal where it was like bing, bang, boom right off the jump, and it's McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, Makar out there. I was like, all right, this is going to be a thumping. And then they went up 2-0, and I'm like going into the second, I'm like, Sweden didn't even get any real chances in that first period. Like, they're really gonna like put up a fight, and they did. They forced OT. Marchand scored. Brad Marchand scored. Second goal, nice pass from Braden Point. The Marchand content from this has been great. Those two guys, I'd never seen them before. They were like, they called themselves like the coaches. I saw it on TikTok. They were interviewing Marchand, kind of like a jokey interview. They asked Marchand to say like 3 nice things about potential rivals of his on his own team, which I thought was funny. Sam Bennett was not mentioned, which I don't get. I don't know why this isn't talked about more. Like, Bennett was scratched on Wednesday, but like, why are we not getting more like, hey, Brad, what do you think of Sam Bennett after he punched him in the face and knocked him out of that playoff series last year? But I think it's impressive. Like, Marchand's always been a big, I want to represent my country guy. The 2016 World Cup of Hockey was sort of his breakout in terms of being a star in the league, going from a guy who was, a top 6 winger to a legit star who could play with your Crosbys and your Bergerons and consistently produce. It's great to see he still got it. He still got it. I mean, he didn't play in overtime. It makes sense. There's faster guys, but I think he brings an added element to that Canada team of grit, of, doesn't lose puck battles, can produce, character. Like, on a team full of speed and skill, I think he's the perfect mix for that group.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think for him, like, there's a lot of motivation on his part beyond the fact that representing his country and, winning a Four Nations tournament is a good way to spring the entire program and the national team into the Olympics. But for him, it's also about validating that he should be on the Olympics team. Like, if there's anyone who I think people should be invested in terms of you hope that they get their due, it has to be Marchand in 2026. Like, it's
Agreed.
definitely not a lock, right? Like, there's a lot of talent on that Canada team. A lot of guys that even the next year or so will be making a push as well. Like, look at like guys like Celebrini, look at Bedard, and any of these players, right, that should continue to get better by the time February 26th comes around. But I think you look at the way Marchand plays, and he's got that ability to be an agitator. He's good. He's still a great two-way player. Even if he's not what he was 5 years ago, there's a lot of value in terms of what he could provide, especially in like a bottom six role to Canada moving forward. So he's motivated in that regard that he wants to make a good impression there, because I think that's the one that, listen, I think we know that guys like McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm, Elias Lindholm will probably be representing their countries in the Olympics, right? Like there's those sorts of things where it feels like it's pretty much going to be a lock. But I do think that it'd be great to see Marchand get that opportunity there. If it's him and Crosby on a little Halifax line together, that'd be really, really cool to see. So you hope that Marchand continues to kind of play well and that continues to raise his stock, because I don't think he's like it's going to be just like a tip of the cap if he makes 26. Like I feel like there's so much talent that it's not just going to be a sympathy addition, but he also needs to play at a high level to accomplish that. And you do hope that he's able to get that spot. But I was also watching, Evan, like that game yesterday, and it also reminds me of like, you look at the way the Bruins are built now, and it feels like Marchand's the kind of guy that like can still obviously be like he's still a legit franchise player for this team, but like how much better would he be if he was kind of more of just like the middle six shit stirring kind of player that he can kind of be with Canada, right? Where he can just be a disruptor. You're never going to question like the effort, the pace, all those things out there. But on Canada, he can kind of be his best self, right? In terms of just what he needs to do every day to every shift to impact the game, playing his style of hockey, being a pain in the ass, being a guy that is first in on pucks, will fight for loose pucks, will win puck battles, will muck it up after the play is stopped. And on the Bruins, he's still like has to be one of like the guys. Like this team is stuck in the mud if he's not playing well, if obviously Pasternak and all that stuff. And it's like you do feel bad for a guy that, in terms of the lack of internal talent, the lack of building around him, that he still has to be like 1B, 1C on this team, right? Like, and again, that maybe is the price of doing business with like the trading away draft capital to win a cup, but it is something where it is unfortunate that at this point he has to be like one of the saviors on the team, as opposed to like, not saying he's a complimentary piece, but I do think you see his value at this point of his career where he can be like second, third line shit stirrer, can score some timely goals for you. Like, I feel like that's where he should be in his career, but the way the Bruins are built, that's not the case.
It isn't. And I think that's the tough part is like on a stacked team like this, he fits in more in that middle six, and you see, how good he can be down there, but they're not going to be in a position in the next 2 years, I don't think, to be able to accommodate him in such a role where it's like, oh, you can be our second line left wing or our third line left wing. Like, I think they are so far from that, given that they don't have many guys coming up. The roster's kind of barren as is for that kind of talent. So you have to use Marchand in that spot. I think Marchand likes being in that spot. Marchand the other day on, I almost said Wet Jeans, on What Chaos. Wet Jeans is a different podcast.
Yes.
But on What Chaos, mentioning that, yes, he could be a great fourth liner, when he's in his, at 41 or whatever, but like, is he going to want to play that role? No, he's not. And so I think he likes that top line role, that top scorer role. But I agree with you. I also think when it comes to the Olympics, like I remember Brian Burke talking about when he was picking the team for the U.S. in 2010, they were very focused on, again, it's kind of a Herb Brooks thing, picking the right players, not necessarily the best players. Now, I have no doubt that Macklin Celebrini might be objectively better than Brad Marchand next season, more skilled, quicker, like all those things. But you already have a lot of that with Canada. And what you don't have a lot of is leaders and guys who have been through it and guys who, can rally the troops and good locker room guys. I'm not saying Celebrini isn't that guy or Bedard, but Marchand brings you a lot of intangibles. And Marchand is not a guy Marchand's a guy who can play in your bottom six. Like that's another, like he's a guy that can work down there. And I think a Bedard can't. I think Bedard is a top six guy. And Celebrini is more of, you could put Celebrini in the bottom six, but again, I just wonder next season, with the way Team Canada shakes out, I think Marchand, barring an unforeseen drop-off, should still be a guy for them, a legitimate piece. And I think, if he continues to play the way he did Wednesday night in this World Cup of Hockey, or in Four Nations, pardon me, like I think, he makes that case really strong. And they mentioned that on the broadcast a couple times, not necessarily with him, but sort of with this tournament in general. It's sort of an audition for the Olympics next year. And these guys want to make these teams and be impactful. And this is a great step and sort of tryout to do that. So hopefully Marchand makes it next year. I still would take his leadership and everything he brings and just being kind of a rat. I would take that. You need that, I think, in big tournaments like this. Something else you always need. Our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long over at PrizePicks. Again, hit the ice this hockey season with PrizePicks. And they're getting involved in Four Nations. You can pick with certain players more or less on points. I was doing it during the Canada and Sweden game on Wednesday night. Mark Stone and William Nylander. I had both less than 0.5 points. That's on me. I should have looked at the lines and saw Mark Stone was with Crosby and McKinnon, and I would have picked him for more. And of course, he scores a goal. So not my best moment, but I did have Nylander correct. He did not have any points on Wednesday night. And again, PrizePicks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits for your account this sports season. And again, PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And again, when the Bruins do return, David Pastrnak, I will always say that's the guy you take. Goals, points, whatever it is, time on ice, you take more of that every single time. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Run your game. One interesting tidbit from the game on Saturday was Emily Kaplan did a hit during the Vegas Bruins game and mentioned that Brandon Carlo is one of the guys the teams are calling the Bruins on. Geeky and Frederick are two other prominent ones, but Carlo, a little out of left field, given he's not a pending UFA. He's 28, signed. How long is he signed here? Is it through next season?
For another year, I believe, or maybe two. I would have to. I know. I'm trying to think of like the guys who have term and where exactly they are, but I know that Coyle is signed for another year. But I'd have to look and see what exactly. I would try to look it up, but my Wi-Fi is bad, so if I do it, I think I'm going to slow down really. So I'd have to look at it again in terms of what it is. 1 second, please. He's got another 2 years.
Yeah, your Wi-Fi actually is not good right now. I can tell.
Yeah,
I can tell.
Yes,
it's like grainy.
He is signed for another 2 years after this.
So 2 more years. So whoever gets him would have control. His money's not bad. I know people love to say he has a bad contract. I will never say Brandon Carlo has a bad contract. Yeah, that's fine. And I know he's underperformed this year, and he's worth lower than that. But I still take a guy like him. I mean, he's a leader in that locker room. He's a good dude. Like, that's a guy you want on your side of the ice. And I know he struggled this year, but I still take him. The question is, though, would you trade him? Because to me, there's only one way I trade him, and that's if someone blows your socks off with a trade proposal. That's my only way I trade him.
Yeah, I think you look at some of these guys who are pending UFAs, right? Like Frederick. You can look at a guy like Geeky, obviously, Marchand. But I think for Coyle, it has to either be like, as you said, like a bunch of draft capital or it's like he's the main piece in like a hockey trade, which if that's the case, right, and you're moving him for, adding a middle six player with term or something like that, then that's appealing, right? But I know that Carlo can kind of be a polarizing player even when he's playing well. It's kind of like a really good like left guard in football, right? When he's playing really well, you don't really notice him, but
Yep.
and I know it has been a bit of a down year for him, but I think you look at the fact that a lot of teams are calling the Bruins on him. And, there's not a lot of guys that are 6'5" in their prime signed to a pretty good deal. It's only going to get better, like especially in the next couple years when the cap really spikes up. Can play on the PK. Is really good. Has good stick work. Really is good at negating scoring chances in their own zone. So I think for a team that is missing a right shot kind of steady presence like that, a second pairing guy, there's a lot of appeal. A lot of times when you have those kinds of stay at home players that are dangled out of the trade market, it's like the Luke Shens or Joel Edmondsons, those kinds of players that are probably more of like third pairing kind of guys. And like there's value bringing in those guys, but Carlo is one of those players that you can add for the next couple of years. And whether it's a team like Columbus that's on the up and up that has like a lot of deficiencies on their decor, or a team like let's just say Edmonton, right? That like
Edmonton
could
would
just
be a good
use
one.
yeah. Like Carlo's the kind of player that teams would covet, both that are trying to win now, and also if they're trying to build something like a younger team and they want to take the next step forward. I think there's a lot of stability in leadership that a guy like Carlo would bring. So yeah, if the price is right, I think the Bruins have to listen in. Again, you have to take away like the player and like the personality. That Carlo's a great dude, great, I think veteran leader in that room for the Bruins. My biggest concern for the Bruins there, if you're weighing whatever an offer would be for him, is how do you replace him? And I know people are like, he sucks this year. Or,
He's
you can
terrible.
replace him.
Just put anybody in there.
Put
So much
anyone in
better.
there. And again, you looked at like that game against Buffalo where Carlo missed it because he was sick. That decor, and that, yes, they didn't have McAvoy and a few other guys, but without having kind of like just one of those steady stay-at-home guys out there, and your top pair was Zadorov and Peak, and Peak was your number one right shot guy.
Tough night.
Not good. And I feel like that is the thing you have to weigh, is like the Bruins don't necessarily have a top four right shot stay-at-home kind of guy. You've got a lot of guys on the left side. You've got a lot of puck movers, but is there a guy that kind of fits Carlo's profile? And it's like maybe you can replicate what he does in the aggregate this offseason by signing like a few guys. Yeah, exactly. Yes, Jeremy Giambi. But
Rip.
yes, RIP. But I do think that is the one concern for the Bruins. So how do you actually replace that kind of player in your lineup? Like if you want to move on from like even a guy like Coyle, who I think still has a lot of value and would be pretty coveted, you can look at like, all right, if he's our, should be our 3C, but we have Poitras coming in and, it might be some growing pains, but we can replace him there. There's not like a guy in Providence or like, even a guy like Michael Callahan or someone like that you can like look at and be like, he can step into that role. Like maybe, but I don't think that's set in stone, right? So I think that is the one concern, is how exactly do you replace a guy like Carlo? But for the Bruins, I think it all comes down to what the price is. If a team's willing to give you a player with term or a useful asset to really help you in this retool, and you think you can somewhat cover up the loss of Carlo on your decor, they probably have to listen in on every offer. But I think replacing him is easier said than done.
You're 100% right. And I think who was it? It was Bruins Cap Space the other day that tweeted Brendan Carlo for Lawson Krause. I was like, please no, like, please don't do that. I really would not be a fan. I mean, again, if they're going to give you someone who's got some promise and term and can help you, like, great. Or if they're going to hand you a first and a prospect and something like that, like, all right, I'll listen. But you hit it on the head with what's their decor then like? So you have Lowry McAvoy, Zadorov, Peak, Wotherspoon, Callahan. I mean, that's like, you comfortable with that? Do you want that not just this year but next year? likely too. Like McAvoy's not going anywhere. Lowry's not going anywhere. Zadorov's not going anywhere. If you're trading Carlo, you're not trading Peak. Yeah, then you have Wotherspoon and Callahan, who are very good, I think 7th defenseman, but they've not proven that they can be everyday, tough minutes, penalty killing defensemen. So I don't know. I mean, we've talked about Peak potentially being dealt instead of Carlo, and you're going to get less, but he's also less valuable to this team. So, you're kind of getting a best of both worlds. My big thing with Carlo is I like him. And, unless someone offers me a haul or something I just can't say no to, I have a tough time believing that they're going to trade him. I just don't, I don't see them following through with that. Someone else, you mentioned this to me when you were putting together the rundown. Jonas Korpisalo. Could he be a trade chip for a team who wants a steady kind of 1B/backup goalie?
Yeah, I mean, it is something when you look at that contract, you feel like there's still some teams that are like, I'm not really that sure about it. But again, I think if you're a team that is, again, on the up and up, and you have cap space especially, and some of that contract, the hold up with it is kind of negated by the fact that the cap is really soaring the next couple of years. Like, would a team like Columbus welcome in a guy like Korpisalo back, right? For, to add some stability there with Merzlikins. I know Tarasov's a guy that has really struggled during limited time there. Merzlikins is kind of up and down, but it's not saying that I think Korpisalo is going to be the savior for that team, but just add some more stability. Like, we know that, hell, they can, Columbus can win games 6-4. So I think that can kind of help you out there. But that is a team that you look at Columbus, right, where they have already a bunch of young talent. They, if there's a time where they could give up like some, like a first round pick or something like that, could Carlo and Korpisalo be part of a package for a team like that, right? Like, I could see him being someone that, if you're a young team that isn't like, a San Jose or something like that they're a year or two, they're a couple years away from contending, but someone like Columbus, where maybe they make the playoffs, maybe they don't, but they're on the up and up and you need to add just a little bit more stability there. Like, Carlo and Korpisalo could be a fit where if you're the Bruins, you either get, draft capital, you get, a player with turn back. I don't know who that would be. You're not getting Marchenko or anyone like that, unfortunately.
No.
That guy is going to be a stud for them. But they also have like a lot of young talent, both in their pipeline and at the NHL level. So that I think could be a team. And they also, Kekalainen's not there anymore, right? So you don't have to worry about. Yeah, you don't have to worry about him dealing with Don Sweeney after the Gavrikov thing. Remember when like the Bruins were rumored to get Gavrikov, and then Kekalainen like lost his mind because like the Bruins were like, oh, never mind, we don't want him. They're like, what the hell?
I remember that.
So you don't have to deal with that anymore. So again, like, Korpisalo hasn't been perfect. I think he's been kind of what you're expecting from a veteran number 2 goalie. He's got a couple of shutouts. He's, I think, played well as of late, honestly. So I think with the cap jumping up and with teams probably in need of just a little bit more stability, not a number 1 per se, but I think that could be an intriguing guy. Maybe that's more of an off-season kind of move for the Bruins, but as much as I think when they initially brought him in, you looked at that contract, and with the Bruins already eating a little bit of it, but you're like, all right, well, this contract's not moving anywhere. I do wonder if he continues to, play to the role of being just a solid backup. If there is some appeal from other teams that could be like, for what that contract is going to be, and for what we need of just a little bit more stability, we'd take a flyer on a guy like that. So I think that's a guy worth keeping tabs on, either before March 7th or once you get into the summertime.
Yeah, I do wonder with guys like Korpisalo and, as you mentioned, Carlo and Frederick and Geeky and Coyle, like, who's actually dealt? Because I think, again, if you're dealing Carlo, I'm not saying you're signaling a rebuild, but you're certainly not going to trade Carlo and still stay in the playoff race. Like, I think that knocks you out. Korpisalo, I think you can deal and be okay with. You can tread water without him. Frederick, same thing. I'm just curious how deep they go into dealing guys. And how much they recoup. Are they looking to just get players back? Are they looking to get draft picks back? We'll see. Time will tell. But for now, we will be watching Four Nations very closely. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, we're going to have you covered every step of the way, whether it be coverage at Four Nations from the Bruins coming out of the break from the trade deadline, all that good stuff. So please read all of it over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That's Poke the Bear. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan. You Poke the Bear listeners, have a great rest of your week.